So the first day, September of '84, I'm at the school, and I say, I gotta be a different person. I'm talking about one of your students, folks. And I went to the library, and I started walking up and down the aisles. And I stumbled on a book. And the book led me to another book. And that book led me to a third book. And that third book, I got to share it with you. It was written by an author, a very well-known author, by the name of Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He was the founder of what was once called Negro History Week, which is now Black History Month. But he had written 16 books. But this one book is what got me on this stage today. Had I not read this one book, there would probably be some other closing keynote today. But this book was a game changer. It fed my practice as an educator. Let me give you the title. It's called The Miseducation of the Negro. Miseducation. And when I began to read it, once I finished the introduction, I really didn't need to read the rest of the book. I was clear on what that book was about, but I was more importantly clear on what I needed to do to become successful. Here's the paragraph that did it for me. He said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or over yonder. He will find his quote-unquote proper place, and he will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he'll cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. So when I read that, I said, wait a minute. He's speaking to me. He's saying, young man, you don't think. You're not critical in your analysis. You're not analytical in your analysis. You're just on the surface. He's essentially saying to me, young man, when you start to think critically to gain deeper understanding, then you pose a threat. But as it exists right now, you pose no threat to anybody. You are self-contained. I'm talking about somebody that you work with, some youngster that you work with. So I went on and decided I wanted to become an educator and continue to read, continue to explore, continue to research, and continue to expand my horizons. And went on and became a teacher in New York City and Brooklyn, to be precise, Crown Heights. And then went on back to my home state and taught for several years. Here's my point. As a teacher, I discovered very early in my practice related to that book that as long as I focus on this thing called the achievement gap, then I will never close it. It will always be wide open. There are many of us, we spend 20, 30 years trying to close this thing called the achievement gap. The gap between one or more race or ethnic groups and the other, and then trying to close this gap in achievement. And we spend all this time, entire careers, trying to close this achievement gap. Well, it began to dawn on me very early in my practice/mission that the achievement gap was the least of my concerns. In fact, the achievement gap was not my issue. I said, there's a broader issue that we're not addressing. Let me give you a scenario. I want to talk about a young man by the name of Jalil. Jalil was born into poverty. Jalil's an 8th grader now. He was born into poverty, and his life was full of challenges, full of obstacles. a life so challenging that his own teachers probably couldn't endure it for 24 hours. And he's got to live it. So all these challenges, all these obstacles, and then when he came to school, immediately, academically speaking, he was problematic. So kindergarten, first grade, second grade, he's just doing horribly. And as he gets older, he's beginning to express how he just doesn't like school, how he just doesn't need to be in school. What do I need this for? So he gets to seventh grade and he's a failure. He's extremely at risk. But then he meets a teacher in grade 7, an English teacher. And for whatever the reason, they click. There's a connection made. And now Jalil becomes a high performer. Jalil becomes an academic superstar. Not because Jalil couldn't do the work before, but now somebody came into his life who happened to be a teacher and told Jalil that you are great. You are somebody. You are extraordinary. And Jalil kept hearing that every day, that I'm somebody, that I'm extraordinary, that I'm special, that I can soar. So he was bombarded with this, with just the affirmation that you're somebody great. So next thing you know, Jalil became great academically speaking. But then Rashawn, another young man born in the same neighborhood, when he came to school in same issues, poverty, challenges, obstacles in his life, but for whatever the reason, he came to school excited. And year after year after year, Rashawn is an honor roll student. But then he had an experience in 7th grade as well. His experience was called peer pressure. And the peer pressure became so great, so enormous, that he succumbed to it. And now Rashawn joined the gang. Rashawn started selling drugs. Rashawn started engaging in acts of violence. Rashawn stopped coming to school on a regular basis. And Rashawn's mother was losing hope. 2 young men, same neighborhood, same situation, same school, but 2 different experiences. When I look at Jalil and Rashawn, I say the gap between the 2 of them has nothing to do with achievement. There's another gap there. And I'm calling this gap an attitude gap. Because now one has an attitude of success. He wants it. He wants to be somebody. But the other one is giving up on education. So the question becomes rhetorically with us as the educators, what do I do to close that gap? What do I do to make a believer out of Rashawn once again? So if you look at the title, it says closing the attitude gap. But what does that mean? See, when I say attitude gap, I'm saying the gap between those students who have the will to strive for excellence and those who do not, with the key words being the will to strive. Do you want it? And if so, how bad do you want it? And if you don't want it, why don't you? So as teacher, as counselor, as principal, as all the stakeholders in the building, because that head secretary, that head custodian, is just as important as the principle. So how do I take all the stakeholders and get Rashawn excited about himself? And how do I purge the excuses from the building? There's this African proverb. It says, he who cannot dance will say the drum is bad. Once again, he who cannot dance will say the drum is bad. So fix the drum and watch me do my thing once you fix it. See, I couldn't do that one. Or let's bring it to contemporary times. He who cannot dance will say the DJ isn't playing my song. DJ, play my song. And then watch what I do. See, I couldn't blame the drum. I couldn't blame the DJ. We've got to look within. Because when I talk about the attitude gap, I'm not only speaking of the gap between students, but I'm also looking at the attitude of the adults. I'm looking at our attitudes. Because when you and I look at Rashawn, what do we see? What do we believe when we see Rashawn? Rashawn, he made some bad decisions. He's even sagging. He walks like this. You ever seen that before? So now he's made these decisions. But when he comes in the building sagging, when he's got his hat turned backwards, when he's not speaking English the way I want to hear it, what do I see when I look at him? Do I see Ivy League? Do I see the university? Do I see the CEO? Do I see the entrepreneur? Or do I see the prison? Do I see the cemetery? Do I see a kid who will never amount to anything? See, what you and I see is who he will become. What you and I see is who she will become. So I decided I got to focus on attitude. About a few years back in 2005, I became the principal of a school called Newark Tech High School. You're from Newark? Brick City. This school had never met AYP. I don't even know if they knew what AYP meant. So the superintendent said to me, we got to meet AYP. I said, no problem. Just let me lead the school. We'll meet that in year one. So here come the students, first staff. I told my staff, we get ready to meet AYP this year, 2005-06 school year. We're getting ready to become a national force to be reckoned with. Don't tell me anything about no gangs in Newark, violence in Newark. Doesn't matter to me. Because I'm going to convince those youngsters that they are somebody, and I need you to do the same, staff. Students come in the next day. I tell them the same thing. We getting ready to soar. They started laughing at me like I was telling jokes. I said, there it is. I was right. Attitude. So now let's go to work on attitude. Well, what you going to do, Kafele? I'm just going to tell them every day that there's somebody. That's it? Yeah, that's going to be at my core. I'm going to convince you. As a consultant, folks, I can't tell you the number of schools that I go into on a daily basis in all 50 states of this country where young people are not told that they are great. Why do I expect you to perform or to strive for greatness when you haven't been told of your greatness? See. So I will spend 180 days particularly those first few minutes of the day, to set the tone and lay the foundation for the day and let you know that you are superstars and you're in a land of superstars. Because I want to close that attitude gap. But see, toward closing it, variables. Two important variables that influence the closure of the attitude gap. Climate and culture. And I think this thing is making all this noise in my pocket, so let me make an adjustment. Thank you. Time out. Testing. There we go. And now I can put this in my pocket. Because, you know, I've been pacing kind of like slow because I can hear it. And I need to expend some energy up here. Hang on. Do that for me. All right. Very good. Now, let me take this jacket off. You ready to rock and roll? Because I had to slow down because I could hear it. My phone's in my pocket, okay? Now, climate and culture. I say, folks, see, I got a little pep in my step now. Those two words are the most important words that you and I can articulate in education. I can't think of anything more important. Climate and culture. But when I say climate and culture, I'm defining these two words. Number one, climate, I'm saying the mood of that school, the mood of that classroom. So a lot of times we say, climate is what I feel when I go into that school, when I go into that classroom. Exactly, but I want to take it a step further. That mood of that school, not the mood of the individuals, but the mood of the place itself. Why am I expecting that youngster who's living with all those challenges to walk into a toxic mood and expect him or her to have the willingness to soar? But what if you and I paid just as much of attention to the mood that we pay to academic achievement? So now, students walk into this building and the mood says, it is cool to be smart. It is okay to be smart. Despite, I don't care what's happening outside in the world, but because the leadership, in conjunction with staff, we said we're going to be intentional, deliberate, and purposeful towards shaping and crafting a mood that a youngster can come in and just want to fly, want to soar. But then coupled with that mood is that lifestyle. How are we living here? And what is it about this place that distinguishes us from everybody else in the world? The way we're living here. Let me give you an example. I guess for my entire 21 years as a public school educator, I had a particular spotlight on the male population. And to be a little bit more precise, my African-American male population. Them, because they represent the greatest challenge, the greatest crisis in American education today. Anytime you look at a graduation rate in the aggregate of 47 to 52%, and then you look at large districts across the country and see graduation rates in a plethora of districts of 20 to 30% of that particular population, I say that's a crisis. But it's a crisis that can be overcome. But it's a crisis. So here I am in Newark with all these black boys and all the stereotypes of being a black boy. But I said, Doesn't matter. But I went to my superintendent and I said to him, we can teach all the math, all the science, all the reading, all the writing. We can teach all the subjects we want to teach. But, sir, here's the problem. At the end of the day, sir, my boys, in fact, my students, but in this case, my boys, they're going to go home to a household where there's no man to hold their hand, where there's no man to model what it looks like to be a man. I said, that has implications for what happens in my school. So therefore, sir, allow me to bring a young men's empowerment program into the school. In other words, sir, allow me to teach my boys what it is to be a man with my male staff, but more importantly, with all the men I'm going to recruit throughout the city of Newark, New Jersey. Allow me to bring those men into the school, men of all walks of life, from the highly successful CEO to the one that just finished a 10-year bid. Let me bring them all in. And then let me set up a structured curriculum where we teach these boys while they're in shirt and tie, particularly on Mondays, which we call Power Monday, every Monday. And let us begin to teach them what it is to be a man, since we know they know what it is to be a male, but they were confused about being men. He said, "You've got the green light." So that became the most significant part of my day, working with these young men, and then we had a young women's empowerment, so working with our girls toward becoming women. What were the results? Well, that school that had never met AYP, we had set a goal. We said anything less than 100% is unacceptable. We said that's unacceptable. 99%, 98% is unacceptable. Because we said that when we look at them, we've got to see winners. So the 100% became our reality. But in large part because boys understood their roles as young men. So by the time those boys became seniors every year, I had whatever number of seniors were in my class, I had that many co-principals. They were held accountable for being my co-principal. So now it wasn't so much me that was preparing 9th grade for high school or 6th grade for middle school when I was a middle school principal. It was the upperclassmen who stood behind the podium in a shirt and tie and told them of their expectations for these youngsters as Newark Tech students. See. But they didn't come to school knowing that. We had to train them. We had to teach them. We couldn't assume anything. So therefore, we had to have a mood and a lifestyle in place which were conducive to a young man saying, I'm holding you, younger young man, accountable. Or I'll place you or tuck you under the wing. Because see, all this that we see in the state of North Carolina and beyond, we can fix this. Teachers come to me every day. Principal Kafele, what's wrong with this population? What's wrong with that population? I say nothing. Come on, Kafele, you see it, particularly with the young men. You see it. I say, yeah, but I'm not going to blame them. We may have to dig a little deeper toward making those connections. For example, who are the principals in the room? Now, watch this. Who are the assistant principals? All right. For example, here I was at a school, metal detectors right at the front door, X-ray machine right in front of the metal detectors with a conveyor belt. So it was just like going to the airport with TSA. students had to go through a metal detector and put their book bag on the conveyor belt, and then when they walked through the detector, security would wind them down. How do you start a day like that? But what if toward creating this climate, this culture, that's conducive to a youngster having the willingness to soar, that the leader stood outside in front of those detectors and shook every hand that walked in that building and said, "Good morning." But what does that do, Principal Kafele? It makes math scores soar through the roof. And then what if Principal got on the PA in the morning or did an in-person convocation, but however, either way, and spoke life into that building every day before the first teacher, before the teacher started teaching the first lesson? What if the leader said, "The school goes as I go, so therefore I must speak life into my school before we get started. I must give them a message that is so inspirational, that is so empowering, that it's almost impossible to go wrong." See? Climate, culture, mood, lifestyle. But then beyond that, take a look at the classroom there. I say to us as teachers, who are the classroom teachers in the room? All right, very good. And I might say to teachers, you know this, but I want to reinforce it for you. Teachers, you matter. You make a difference. You are the most important people on the planet Earth, the classroom teacher. You will never, ever hear me engage in teacher bashing. It's not who I am. Because I realize your importance. I don't care who we're talking about, whatever achievement was made by whomever, from the president on down, they had to go through you, the teacher. You matter. You make a difference. But see, as the classroom teacher then, I'm saying that there are these 4 questions that we just have to keep at the forefront of our minds. Question number 1, when our students are in our classroom, what do they see? What do they see? They walk into that room, or principals and assistant principals, they walk into your building. What do they see? I was at a school, give you an example, on the west side of Chicago last spring. And I was there as a consultant. And it was a bad situation there. And at the end of the day, the principal asked me to talk to all the boys. I didn't want to. That school was out of control. I didn't want to discipline kids in order to be able to talk to them. But the competitor in me said, "You can't say no." So I went on and said, "Yes, I'll speak to all your boys." Principal called the boys down. Oh, man. It's like they didn't know how to come down to the cafe. It was in a cafeteria. They didn't know how to come down because they didn't have experience in it. Why do I expect you to know how to come down in order if you don't have experience coming down there? So here they come. They loud, lot of profanity, a lot of other words. And principal said, "All right, settle down." What do they see? Settle down. And they said, "No, we ain't settling down." So principal said, "Okay, I gotta figure out a way to transition." So amongst all that chaos, she said, "We got a speaker." That didn't mean nothing. Especially the speaker that came with these John Lennon frames and his shirt and tie. Didn't mean a whole lot. So now, when she said we got a speaker, all that energy was directed at me. I said, "Man, they calling me names in this place." So she said, "And he's a principal." Oh my God. You associated me with you. And he wrote a book. Principal Kafele. That was my intro. I stepped to the front. Them kids started cracking up laughing at me, boy. I said, oh, man. But the competitor in me, folks, I said, teachers, you matter. Ain't nothing going to stop you. You're not worried about these obstacles. You're not worried about these challenges. You're ready. You're not worried about adversity. So I'm in the room with a few hundred young men laughing at me. I said, okay. Kafele, you got 10 seconds. If you fail, get that bag over there and get on out of there and get to O'Hare. But I wasn't going to fail. I said, let me bring it down. Let me speak at this volume right here so these folks in the front can hear me. And I spoke just like that, and them ones in the front got quiet because they wanted to know what I was saying. And a wave went on back to the back of the room. 10 seconds later, I owned them. So now the dismissal bell rang at 3. I was down there at 2 to start. Them kids wouldn't get up. So I went another half hour. Finally, I said, yo, I got to go. We've been here long enough. Them kids lined up, want to shake hands, want to tell me their story. So then the principal, I'm getting ready to go, got my bag, got my hat. Principal said, wait a minute, Kafele. We need to talk, you, me, and my team. About what? Whatever that is you just did. Because we ain't never seen nothing like that before. Not here. But folks, let me tell you something. Nothing special I did. What do they see? Nothing special. So I said, okay, let's talk. We went into a classroom, brought the desks together, formed a big table. 7 administrators. All right, what's going on? They bickering. Man, these kids don't relate to us. These kids are bad. These kids are out of control. You ever heard that before? They're out of control. They don't want to be in school. Their parents, a lot of talk about the parents. Their parents, man, their parents are not involved. All that kind of talk. You heard that before. You didn't talk about it, but someone down the highway did, right? So now, I'm looking at the walls. What do they see? I'm not listening to this conversation. I'm looking at the walls. And then finally I said, time out, everybody. What's taught in this room? They said, science, Principal Kafele. I said, yeah, I see that. But let me ask the question again. What's taught in this room? They said, well, biology. No, go deeper, y'all. What's taught in this room? That's it, Principal Kafele, that's it. I said, well, there's your problem. There it is. So you're telling me science and biology. I see evidence all over the room that that's taught in this room. No doubt about it. But I see zero evidence that you teach children in this room. See? Zero evidence. What do you mean, Principal Kafele? I said, where's the section of the walls, or where's the entire walls that reflect these kids? Where's the celebration of your students? Where's the acknowledgement of your students? Where's the recognition of your students? Where's the something that says to these students that this room is for you? That this room is about you? Where's the magnet that makes that kid want to come back? How are you using your space to change his and her attitude? In this case, this was an all-male school. How are you utilizing your space, looking for the smallest excuse to celebrate that young man? Looking for the smallest of excuses to celebrate that young lady. You've got to utilize your space differently so that everywhere they look, they see themselves. Now, I'd love to go into specifics, but this is just a keynote address. I got to keep it moving. What do they see? But number 2, what do they hear? What do they hear coming from us? I can't tell you the number of students, and you've had the same experience. They come back to me and say, I am the man I am today. I am the woman I am today because of you, Principal Kafele. Facebook and Twitter made all that possible. Now I can talk to all them former students. They got a way of finding you. And what a beautiful thing. We just talked about that in the car. What a beautiful thing when that child, that adult finds you and says, I just want to say thank you. I just want to say thank you because you believed in me when no one else did. You refused to quit on me. You refused to give up on me. Here I was suspended. Here I was arrested. Here I was in all sorts of trouble. But here you were right there in my corner, never giving up because you saw in me what I did not see in myself. See, what do they hear? See, in some school districts, we'll attempt to rectify all this by bombarding you with more math, reading, and writing, whatever's tested on the state standardized assessment. So let me just pound you with a little bit more. That ought to inspire you. That ought to fire you up. But what if, on the other hand, I bombard you with my belief in you? What if I bombard you with praise and reinforcement of who you will become? I tell teachers every day, if you've got a class of, say, 9, 10, 11-year-old, whatever it is, you got 9 and 10-year-olds in your classroom. Don't just see the 9 and 10-year-old sitting in the chair. See the 19 and 20-year-old. See the 29 and 30-year-old. See the 39 and 40. See them simultaneously with the 9 and 10. Don't just see them for who they are now. See them for who they will become. And help them to think about who they will become. Because I don't want to stay locked in to just the here and now. I want that kid to develop a sense of vision for who he or she will one day become. What do they hear? Number 3, what do they feel? What's the emotion? You know, there's someone sitting in this room. I don't know who you are, but I know you're here. There's someone sitting in this room who was a victim of verbal harassment when you were in grade school. Kids used to tease you. Kids used to laugh at you. Kids made you feel bad about yourself. And perhaps you internalized all that ridiculing that they were doing. And now you didn't feel about yourself the way you did prior to it occurring. And now here you sit as an adult, as an educator, but yet those wounds are still open when you reflect back on the experience. Well, there are children sitting in every classroom represented in this room. There's somebody in pain. There's some youngster that doesn't want to be there. There's some youngster that puts on a mask in the morning and pretends that everything is all right. But everything's not all right at all. And sometimes the worst time of my day is when I walk into my teacher's classroom. Because that one that makes fun of my dress, my sneakers, my hair, my complexion, my physical features, just relentlessly every day, that person's sitting right next to me, and now you expect me to come in here fired up every day and ready to soar? Teacher, do you know what I'm dealing with every day here? Whether it be in the cafeteria, whether it be in the gymnasium, on the school bus, wherever in this classroom, do you realize what it's like to be me? Do you know what I feel, teacher? What do they feel? Climate and culture. How far do those antennas reach so that I know how my youngsters feel? Because if I feel good, then we increase the probability that I can perform. But if I'm feeling bad, if I'm feeling down, I'm feeling intimidated, I'm feeling hurt just by being in this room, it makes it difficult for me to perform at those levels. See, because going back to that word poverty, I meet a lot of folks, whether they be educators or not, who want to use that as an excuse People write all sorts of books and do all sorts of research and write all sorts of papers on poverty and its impact, its implications with education. I don't worry about that. See, you and I want to dwell on that which I have control over. And if I can't control it, then I can't make it my issue. So if on the one hand, poverty exists, and that's what that kid came from at 7 o'clock on the way to school, and that's what he's going home to at 3 o'clock, I can't control that. But I can certainly control how you feel once you get into my room, because I'm going to create an oasis for you so that you can forget what's going on out there for a few minutes, see? You and I can control that. So as leader of the school, see, we can control that, because we can make that building so special. Here had a school infested with Bloods and Crips, Latin Kings and MS-13s. And here comes Principal Kafele, says, look here, gentlemen, I need you in a shirt and tie. Oh, come on, man. Well, we don't do it. We can't walk through our hood in shirt and tie, all that. But Mom, I need you to work with me, Mom. I need your son in a shirt and tie, just once a week on Monday. So now we work on it. And now here he comes on the appointed day, all of them, shirt and tie. They mad at me. 3 o'clock bell rings, they running in the bathroom, the whole school putting their street clothes back on. Year 2, let's fast forward. Year 2, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, it's Thursday. What are you doing with a shirt and tie on today? Hey, Kafele, man, I just like the way I feel in the shirt and tie. I mean, you don't have a job interview or anything? No. I just woke up wanting to look like this. See what we believe, what we see, what we speak into them. That's what they become. But I got to get you so you feel good about being here. But then the fourth question, I'm saying, teachers, we got to keep these questions right at the forefront of our mind. What do they experience? What's the overall experience? See, teaching and learning, obviously very important. But I say when we can transcend teaching and learning, and we look at what we do is we're creating these memorable experiences. When that kid flashes back 10 years later, 20 years later, I was in Miss So-and-so's class. What experience is the recollection, though? The experience, just being in the room, learning was just fun. Learning was stimulating, it was engaging. Yeah, it was rigorous, but it was relevant at the same time. And relationships abound in this student-centered environment, learning environment. So when I think back, oh man, I'm so successful today because of Miss So-and-so, because of Mr. So-and-so. So when you and I focus on creating these experiences that transcend just teaching and learning, keeping in mind what they see, keeping in mind what they hear, what they feel, and then what they experience. Let's keep it moving. Time is moving quickly. So, real quick, very quickly, I say that your school's brand determines student outcomes. I'm just going to touch on this. In workshops, it usually takes me 2 days to cover this one screen I'm getting ready to show you. 2 days. Because one of the things that I've discovered, brand is such an important part of businesses, companies, corporations. But then that word brand typically is not used in our business. And I say to us, as a school, and this is the abbreviated version, think about your respective schools. Well, as a school, collectively speaking, who are you? In other words, if you have a staff of 50 or more, and the question is asked, who are you? And if I gave you these sub-questions, what are your core collective beliefs about the practice of teaching at your school? and the process of learning at your school? What are your core collective beliefs? And we ask everybody on staff. Well, let me tell you, if there are 50 people on staff, there will be 50 different responses. So then I asked the question, well then, if you guys are all over the place relative to your core collective beliefs about the practice of teaching, in other words, methodology, pedagogy, strategies, and the process of learning, how children process information, how children learn, if you guys are so spread out, then my question becomes, then who are you? What's your identity as a school? What's your brand? And we can go further, but I will catch myself and not go any further on that question. Number two, what are you about? What's your mission? When I walk into a school, folks, as a consultant, when I stand in that front lobby, as I tell everybody in America, I want to be able to stand in the front lobby and take in the school's mission. And when I can't sense that mission, when I don't see that mission, then it tells me immediately that I'm in a mission-less environment. Now let's go to the students. How do I fire you up? How do I get you ready? And here you are walking into a school every day that has no brand, no identity, and no mission. So in other words, it has no identity, and by definition, it doesn't seem to be about much because it hasn't defined what it's about. One could say its purpose. But when I walk into a school and I can ask any student, any adult, any educator, any stakeholder in the building, including the custodian, security, the kitchen worker, I don't care who it is, what's your mission here? And they state it, I say, here's a mission-driven school. Schools that don't have missions where everyone in the building can recite that mission and know that mission and live that mission, they look like this. I'm going to demonstrate it for you. A percentage of the students and staff are walking in this direction. They're walking straight. Another percentage are walking the opposite direction. Another percentage are walking in this direction. Another percentage are walking in this direction. Another percentage are coming in a diagonal, another percentage in another diagonal, and another percentage this way diagonal, and another percentage this way diagonal, and then in the middle, bam, collision. Because you got all these people walking in all these different directions because we have not defined what we're about, our mission, our purpose, brand. And then number three, where are we going? It's like you go into a classroom, ask a youngster, what are you expected to know and to be able to do by the end of this lesson? What? And see, when I walk into a classroom, that's the first thing I want to see. I want to see it, but I want a kid to tell me. By the time this lesson is over, what will you know that you didn't know? And what will you be able to do? But then let's tie that to the vision of the school now, the school's brand. Where are we going? Imagine we want students in a given school to soar, but we haven't defined what soar looks like. In other words, that vision isn't manifest throughout that building. Maybe that vision doesn't even exist. That vision is important because when going back to North Tech, I told those students, my staff and I, we agreed collectively that 100% was a realistic goal. So then we share that with students literally every day, that this is where we were going and beyond. So they were clear on what we were about and where we were going. Mission, vision, no accident. It was all deliberate. How bad do you want to get there? Imagine when we have schools full of educators where everybody is deeply passionate about everybody in that building, where everybody wants it at gut level. Everybody is excited about the kids in that school. Everybody's enthusiastic about the work. The energy level is high. The passion is high for achievement in that school. See, when we have that attitude. But how do we get there, Principal Kafele? That sounds good in theory. That goes back to me. I was having a conversation with a colleague, Principal Miss Short, at the table a little bit earlier. And we were talking about the fact that I call myself Principal Kafele, and I haven't been a principal in 3 years. I live out of a garment bag. I'm in 3 to 5 states per week. But I haven't been in a school serving as the principal, and my response was this: because I took that title and literally made it my name. So there's no switch to turn on and off. This is who I am. So in leading the school, that's the energy I brought, that I'm walking in my purpose for living, see. And when you and I in this room can find that purpose and walk it every day, it makes those challenges, it makes those obstacles, it makes that adversity that much easier to maneuver around. Because we're walking in what we have deemed, what we were born to do, see. So that there in and of itself implies a passion to get it done. So what if as leader, I can engage my staff in that same conversation about the energy, not the skill and ability, but the energy that we bring to these youngsters every day. The passion, the commitment that we bring to these youngsters every day. And then the standard, the big idea. Perhaps there's a school represented in this room who hasn't attained blue ribbon status yet, but you feel you can. That becomes that big idea, and we say, well, this is going to drive us. I can't tell you the number of school staffs that I meet that tell me that we can't dream like that because of our present reality. It's an incredible thing to hear. Principal Kafele, we can't dream big because of our current situation. And every time I hear it, I say to the principal, your children are doomed because your teachers do not feel that you can get to that level with that big idea. So principal now becomes incumbent upon you. You must inspire your staff. You can't be an adversary of your staff. You must be in position to inspire your staff, to make believers of your staff, that despite the challenges, yet they're very unique and specific challenges, that they too can soar to the highest of heights and achieve whatever that big idea is. Moving on, goals. What are our collective goals as a staff? And there's a lot more to that, but I see that minute hand moving. What are our collective plans? Not individual plans, but collective as a school, as a brand. And then finally, at what point do we spend time collectively reflecting on our practice as a school, assessing collectively on our practice as a school and making the necessary adjustments that we need to make? That's something that should be ongoing. Not just individuals reflecting, but schools reflecting on who we are as a brand, as a school, assessing ourselves, evaluating ourselves, and then making the necessary adjustments. So what I want to do with these couple of minutes I have, I want to show you a quick video clip that kind of ties up a lot of what I said. I hope the volume is where it needs to be. In fact, let's try it. Let's go backwards one and let me turn it up. Oh. Just turn me up a little bit. A little more.
I tell my staff, I tell my students, I tell my parents all the time that I'm unemployed, I have no job. I wake up to my mission, I wake up to my passion.
When Power Monday first started, I hated it. I did not like dressing up. But once I got used to it, it was like, okay, something that's going to help me in my future.
Visiting classrooms every day is a very important aspect of what I do. You show me a principal that you can find in the office on a regular basis, and I'll show you a school that doesn't have leadership.
Things will be going well in the classroom, and he'll walk in and it'll go even better. Kids want to show him what they know because there's such a respect for him.
When I see Mr. Kafele coming into my classroom, I'll be like, okay, he's observing me, how am I performing, so I'm do my best, not to impress him, but just to show him that I'm working towards that goal that he has.
Matter of fact, let me see you again real quick.
You can stop some students in the hallway and say, they're tired, work hard to them. And we've got 750 students. So when you say, hey, you got that C in math, you gotta bring it out, that's powerful to them.
Principal Kafele motivates everybody in school to perform their best.
From the 100% club, 100%ers, not the 100%. 100%. Very good. I expect that every student does all homework assignments 100% of the time. It is housekeeping time. The teachers provide me with a list of whatever students didn't complete homework, and we read their name all over the VA system. The following 3 students report to my office. We call them down to let them know that they have what I call readathon the next morning. That means that that's a time to sit still and sit quietly and just read a book. Gentlemen, one thing that I want them to get is responsibility.
Because only calling every one of the EAs about the homework teaches you that you have a responsibility, and your responsibility is to excel.
He treats his children as his own. They look up to him, I guess, as his father because he don't have fathers.
Even though my father is not me, Mr. Kafele was the person that inspired me, that motivated me to do better in life.
This student has a cell phone. They call him 24 hours. And it's really unheard of.
These very special people that you run into once in a while. And Greek fellows, he's the kind of man that make me wish to talk.
When I look into my students' faces, what I want to see is hope. Not my hope for them, but hope within themselves.
I feel that I am prepared to face the world because of my experience at Keynotes.
Since my freshman year, I've been going, and now I'm an honor student.
To wake up and go and motivate, inspire, to educate other educators or young people or parents. I couldn't ask for a better life.
Thank you. I show you that not to bring attention to me, but to show you the possibilities despite, again, whatever we're up against. To close, though, I want to skip all this and just show you a last screen here. Let's continue the conversation. I meet a lot of parents, folks across the country, a lot of parents, mothers who are in tears. I probably meet more mothers in tears than those who are not in tears. And typically they're crying because they're saying to me, I need you to save my son. Give me something to help me save my son. So as I thought about it for a while, I said, okay, I'm gonna take up the challenge. And I put together a video series where I speak directly to boys, YouTube videos, selfies, directly to boys, post them on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, one every Sunday morning. I started in November, I was doing them every day, but now every Sunday. There are 114 videos posted. I had no intention on schools showing them in school, but that is essentially what has happened. Teachers are showing these videos, using them to inspire these boys in particular in class literally every day. So I bring that to your attention. Then message to a parent, helping parents. Once again, videos, you can go right on my website. Message to a teacher. Teachers need inspiration. I use all I got because this is mission work to keep a teacher inspired. And finally, message to an aspiring principal. You can find all those videos on principalkafele.com, and you can stay connected to me on Twitter and Facebook. With that being said, I'm blessed to be here this afternoon with you. I wish you all an extraordinary remainder of the school year, because if you have an extraordinary remainder of the year, that means your students are going to soar. With that, I say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We thank Principal Kafele for being with us today. Such an inspiring message that we have to inspire each other to achieve. We have to inspire our students to achieve, and we have to be the fire that we want our students to be and the force that we want our students to be. We want to thank you for being with us this afternoon. Again, thank you to the staff who made this conference happen. Thank you to our exhibitors for being here and in great quantity. We just are very, very appreciative. I would like to just announce that Principal Kafele's book is on sale right outside of Guilford, and if you'd like for him to autograph it, I'm sure he'll have a few minutes to do that as well. Thank you again, everyone, and safe travels home.